Canola and peas and tariffs on EVs. Carney signs a deal in China. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's a deal. It's just past 1 o'clock on Saturday morning in Beijing, and in a few hours from now, Prime Minister Carney will leave China for another trip, this time to Doha in Qatar. Mr. Carney's leaving the Middle Kingdom with a new deal with Chinese President Xi Jinping. There will be tariff relief for Canadian producers of canola, peas, lobster, and crab. In return, Canada will lower tariffs on Chinese-made EVs and allow a limited number of Chinese-made EVs to be sold in this country every year. During a news conference, Prime Minister Carney called the deal a landmark.
By March the 1st, Canada expects that China will lower tariffs on Canadian canola seed to a combined rate of approximately 15%. China is a $4 billion canola seed market for Canadian producers, and this change represents a significant drop from the current combined tariff levels of 84%. Furthermore, Canada expects that Canadian canola meal, as well as Canadian lobsters, crabs, and peas, will not be subject to relevant anti-discrimination tariffs from March 1st of this year until at least the end of this year. Together, these results will unlock nearly $3 billion of export orders for Canadian farmers, fish harvesters, and processors as they realize the full potential of this market of 1.4 billion people.
The previous Liberal government, led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, placed a 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs. That decision came shortly after the former Biden administration in the United States did the same thing. Prime Minister Carney was asked to explain today what he plans to tell the Trump administration, which has maintained those Biden-era tariffs, what he plans to tell Canadian auto workers and Canadian automakers, and how he'll explain this decision to premiers like Doug Ford, now that Chinese-made EVs will soon be for sale in Canada.
That is part of a broader partnership, and the fundamental issue is we have a broader strategic partnership on which to build and create big opportunity. But to get to the auto question and your various questions around specifically, let's put this in context. 49,000 vehicles, which is the cap on Chinese electric vehicle exports to Canada. That's part of this agreement. That's a return to levels last seen in 2023, the last full year before the Canadian tariff actions. That's the first point. Second point, again, to dimension it, that's less than 3% of the size of the Canadian auto market. The third point, to put in context, and I reference this, is that part of this agreement, and it takes a few years to build this, a couple of years to build this, that an increasing portion of those exports will be in a new segment of the Canadian market. In other words, electric vehicles that cost less than $35,000 at the landed price. So there's huge opportunity here to get more affordable cars in the electric vehicle market for Canada.
The Prime Minister went on to say he hopes one day Chinese companies will be building those EVs in this country.
And in many respects, the most important element is the beginning of discussions and expectation of Chinese investment in Canada and partnership in Canada to produce vehicles over time, so to partner with Canadian firms. And putting all this, and if I can take the last part of your question, then move to colleagues, which is vis-a-vis the U.S., I think we need to look at this in the context of building. I mean, we're building a new part of our car industry, building cars of the future in partnership, bringing affordable autos for Canadians at a time when affordability is top of mind, and doing it at a scale that allows for a smooth transition in the sector.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who had been calling on the Prime Minister to maintain the 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs, released a statement today slamming the agreement. Ford issued a statement that says China now has a foothold in the Canadian market and will use it to their full advantage at the expense of Canadian workers. Ford calls the deal lopsided and says the federal government is inviting a flood of cheap, made-in-China electric vehicles into the country. He's calling on the Prime Minister to reverse course and, quote, fix this mess. Prime Minister Carney was asked if he brought up human rights issues with the Chinese leadership or whether he was casting those issues aside because of the need to diversify Canada's trade, given what's happening in the United States.
Look, we fundamentally stand up for human rights. We stand up for democracy, territorial integrity, rights to self-determination. We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That means the following. We do engage with countries. We calibrate that engagement depending on our values and our interests. So that engagement is more narrow when there are those issues. We also have, if you will, a sort of value-based realism to the approach. In other words, we will engage on those issues. We'll engage with coalitions on those issues because that has more influence. And we will form coalitions with those countries with which we share those broader values.
Now it's off to Qatar for the Prime Minister, where he has meetings scheduled with the Emir of Qatar. That will be his first visit to that country as Prime Minister of Canada. After that, Mr. Carney will travel to Davos, Switzerland, for the World Economic Forum that begins next week on Monday. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
He's our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership, all in focus for us today. Barry McLaughlin's back with us. He's the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants, offices in Ottawa and Washington, D.C. He teaches at the University of Ottawa's Professional Development Institute and at Cape Breton University's Shannon School of Business. You can follow him on a Substack. You can listen to his podcast. It's amazing he has enough hours in the day. He's with us every Friday. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. How about you?
Good, good. You're all dug out from the snow.
I dug out yesterday. It all came back. I dug it out again this morning. Yeah. Welcome to Ottawa, right?
Yeah. Good blast. Yeah. Well, let's start with the big news. Prime Minister Carney has a deal with China. Tariff relief from China. And Canada will lower tariffs on Chinese EVs, and China will be allowed to sell those cars here. It's a big, what we would call in the biz, Barry, and announceable. What do you make of it?
Well, yeah, that's a big announceable and a real about turn. Well, I mean, I think it was inevitable. We're talking about new markets, reaching new markets, opening up, and reducing tariffs. I mean, this does fall within that for sure. It's a very limited thing, 49,000 vehicles from China. It's not huge, but it's a strong signal. The signal, I think, is aimed south of the border, that there are alternatives to you if you're going to cut us off. I think also the real awkward thing for this, of course, is the human rights issue, which the Prime Minister deftly dealt with. But it is a reality. I worked with an organization that was, involved in targeting, on behalf of the government of Canada, identifying and investigating slave labor used by supply chains from North American companies operating in China. And so that does go on. And so it's not a minor issue. But I think the reality is that it was doing nothing. Canada just freezing out China was really doing nothing to help that case. And we may as well move forward in a constructive way and at least be a voice at the table whenever we can.
So he was asked about those human rights issues, whether he brought those up or whether those issues are being put to the side now because, as you say, we're looking for other markets given what's happening in the United States. I want to listen to a little bit of this here. Let's play this again. Clip 4, please.
Look, we fundamentally stand up for human rights. We stand up for democracy, territorial integrity, rights to self-determination. We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That means the following.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. What do you think of a line like that?
Well, that's pretty interesting. He slowed down to make sure he got it right.
Yeah.
Well, that is, of course, a truism. We only trade with companies that we completely agree with how they treat their people. Okay, that's a pretty narrow range of trade you're ever going to engage in. Even in the United States, there's all kinds of things they're doing down there that we don't agree with. Would we like to keep trade going? Of course we would. So I'm not justifying it. It's easy to look like you are. And we've had some, the two Michaels, we've had a lot of difficult situations there that have been hurtful. So we can't turn a blind eye. It's important we not signal that we do. And I thought he struck the right balance.
How does he deal with somebody like Doug Ford? Doug Ford is out with a scathing statement about this. It's lopsided. It's a mess. They're going to flood Canada with cheap made in China EVs. Canadian workers are going to lose their jobs. Donald Trump's not going to be happy. Certainly Doug Ford's not happy. Look, these two get along pretty well, Doug Ford and Mark Carney. Yeah. This could open up a pretty wide rift here by the sounds of things.
Well, of course, Doug, I'm not blaming him because it's very emotional here in Ontario in particular. We're so reliant for jobs and everything way beyond the auto sector for the work done here. And Trump has targeted Canada, doesn't want anything made here. So, of course, Doug Ford is furious and angry on behalf of Canadian workers at the big lies that are being told in this whole area. So, of course, anything that signals we're going to bring in other imports is a problem. However, opening up the trade is an important thing to do. We are not going to become a country that stops buying products from other countries. Then you can't sell them anything. That's why who was sitting right next to the Prime Minister was a gentleman that we know personally, Scott Moe. There he is. He brought him in at the last minute because of the canola barriers that are there and so on, and they're really hurting out in Western Canada. So it's a two-way street. You can't just close one eye and say, this is how we're going to move forward here. I understand Doug Ford's anger, but at the same time, that cannot be Canada's official position. I really believe that's untenable.
Okay. Let's leave that and just revisit something that we talked about last week, the cramped seats on WestJet, Barry. WestJet has just issued a statement. We're not going ahead with that. We have made the decision following feedback from employees and customers amid a backlash to the tighter layout. Maybe they were listening to you last week. Right decision, in your opinion, by WestJet?
Oh, definitely. I think they had to pull the plug. It's a new Coke. It was a failure. Admit it. Move on. That's what they did. Right thing to do.
Okay. All right. When we come back, how the Ottawa Senators became the talk of the sports world and the PR world. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here with Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. It's not been a great first half of the NHL season for the Ottawa Senators. They're out of the playoffs. They haven't been playing well. Not great goaltending. And their star goaltender, Linus Ullmark, took a leave of absence from the club. As a result of that, Barry, there was one troll account, on X, spreading a whole bunch of lies about why Ullmark was on a leave of absence from the club. But it did get people talking. Instead of ignoring it, the team released a strongly worded statement denying the rumors, defending the players. And that's when the story really took off and became a major storyline throughout the world of professional sports. Some call it a perfect example of the Streisand effect. First of all, what the heck is the Streisand effect? What is that? Do you know?
Yeah. Well, there was mudslides and all kinds of things happening in Malibu a number of years ago. And when they were reporting on it, they took a photo of Barbara Streisand's house right there on the cliff, right there in Malibu. And she immediately reacted, angrily, take it down. It's, security, privacy, take it down. Well, within an hour, 450,000 people clicked on it to take a look at it. So we call that breaking into jail. The Streisand effect means, when you get something like that, don't escalate it, don't energize it, don't emotionalize it. The 3 E's of disaster. That's what she did. So it's understandable. It's certainly to attack, the goaltender, Senator's goaltender's family is a horrible thing. Of course, you're going to be emotional. But instead of we always say, don't give oxygen to the flame, okay? So it's got to smother and die. Instead, they relit it and they cascaded it. So I understand why the general manager issued, these trolls. He was really clearly a very angry post. And the captain of the Senators, again, we understand why they want to stand up for their team. We totally get that. But being an outsider means you're coming in with an objective voice and say, you know what, I get all that, but here's what you're going to do. Don't wrestle with the pig. You both get dirty, and the pig loves it. So keep that in mind. You keep him going, he's going to love you, and he's going to dine out on that. And people go, gee, I didn't even hear about that. Let me go find out. So you're going to trigger many, many people who now want to dig in and find out. So I think it's the wrong strategy, even though the emotion and values at stake here, they want to defend their player. It's horrible to attack a family. So I think in the end, you just have to, shut her down. No more oxygen means 3 days from now, 2 days from now, nobody's even mentioning it. It's hard to take that 2 or 3 days, but you got to take it. Even if your pals, your friends, and your own direct people say, you got to respond. No. They're trying to be helpful, but sometimes that's the disastrous advice. I've dealt with politicians who say, we got to respond. So you do that. The moment you do that, you're going to lead every newscast in this country. So is that really the benefit you want out of this? No, it isn't. So it's a hard thing to do. I totally understand why the senators have responded this way, but I think a lesson needs to be learned here. You've got to be very, you got to, silence sometimes is golden, and you got to know when to deploy it. And any family member, you see, that's the problem. They can't defend themselves. So you bring up even family, whatever, suddenly there's even a doubling down of that. And they have less and less, they don't have a corporation behind them. So you're better off to not give it any kind of notice, humanly possible. And if you feel you have to give what's called a one-line shield, that's usually a neutral thing. We're not going to be engaging in, any personal attacks, that kind of thing. But we always say use more in sadness than in anger is the tone. And that's what they needed to add to that.
Great stuff. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Barry. Yeah, Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter is just ahead. Some news about the Freedom Convoy today that we'll start with. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
So as you just heard very briefly in our newscast, that's it for Bo Bichette in a Toronto Blue Jays uniform. Bo Bichette is joining the New York Mets. A 3-year deal, according to The Athletic, and it's worth $126 million. Bo Bichette of the New York Mets, 3-year deal, $126 million. Major loss for the Toronto Blue Jays in the free agent market. They had been chasing as well Kyle Tucker, but news broke as well recently that Kyle Tucker is going to the Los Angeles Dodgers, a 4-year deal worth $240 million. My goodness. So we'll await more news on the free agent market in Major League Baseball from the Toronto Blue Jays. Meantime, the man who's been minding Ottawa's business, Tom Korski, is back with us, and he's the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. How are you this week?
I'm well, thank you, Rob.
Yeah, very good. And we have a developing story of our own. It would appear that it is Freedom Convoy 2, Trudeau government 0, when it comes to the constitutionality of using the Emergencies Act to end the Freedom Convoy. What do you know about the ruling from the Federal Court of Appeal today?
A very harsh ruling, Rob. It concludes that it was Cabinet that acted unlawfully. not the largely peaceful protest. The court concludes that the criminalization of attendance at this protest, the famous honking, was a violation of individual protesters' freedom of expression. It goes further in saying that the famous freezing of the bank accounts and compelling banks, credit unions, crowdfunding platforms to share a blacklist, a police blacklist of suspected protesters, was also unconstitutional. Breached individuals' right to protection from unreasonable search and seizure. It is a very difficult concept for, I know, people in Ottawa to grab this, and I know you and I have discussed this in the past, Rob. Ottawans, especially officialdom, I include the majority of the Parliament and the Senate, are unhinged on the subject of the Freedom Convoy. They simply will not accept that it was Cabinet that was berserk, not the people who were barbecuing hot dogs and honking horns on Wellington Street outside Parliament Hill. And here you have now, this is undoubtedly going to go to the Supreme Court, where, forgive me, it becomes quite problematic. Because a certain high judge, I refer to Chief Justice Wagner, in 2022, weeks after the protest, gave an unfortunate interview to a Quebec newspaper in which he described protesters as anarchists and hostage takers. So who's unlawful now? How do you now appeal this to the Supreme Court, where you have the highest judge in the land who have expressed, forgive my rough language, a very stupid opinion and is now expected to sit in judgment? Officialdom does not look good on this chapter. It just is, it's a shabby look, Rob.
Yeah. Gosh, there were just so many mistakes made, not only by the Trudeau government in invoking the Emergencies Act. I didn't agree with everything that happened during the Freedom Convoy protest, but I didn't think the Emergencies Act was needed to deal with it. When I was doing local radio in Ottawa during that saga in the middle, it was a brutally cold time of winter in Ottawa. I'll never forget that month-long thing in Ottawa. But there were so many mistakes made by, not just the cabinet, but local officials as well, and the way that they dealt with it. It was incompetence from the local police chief, who lost his job over it, the chair of the local police services board, who lost her job over it. It certainly cost the mayor, I think, a lot of popular support. He decided not to run again. Doug Ford never even appeared before the public inquiry that was held into it. It was just handled shabbily from top to bottom, and then there was a gross overreaction from the Trudeau government with the invocation of the Emergencies Act to deal with it. Yeah.
When you looked at the documents that came out of that judicial inquiry, what was striking is the police, and this is, we assume, that this was based on informants. The entire protest was just rife with police informants. And the police, and I include the Ontario Provincial Police, their intelligence unit, and the RCMP, warned officials over and over. This is just a bunch of white guys in ball caps. There is no violence or insurrection here. One OPP superintendent described the protest as shockingly nonviolent. It was shocking how peaceful it was as they shoveled the snow and had dance parties. But officialdom got frightened. And that's the takeaway, and that's alarming. When you have control over the police, as the cabinet did, when you control all the police and all the guns, you don't get to be scared. You have to be a big boy. And they weren't, and cabinet was petrified. The Attorney General in the day, famously, Dave Lametti, today our man at the United Nations, said he fled the city for fear that someone would recognize him on the street. You just don't get to wet your pants.
We saw text messages. Messages at the time between Lametti and Mendicino was the public safety minister at the time. How they were talking about should we bring in the tanks, and only one will do. I can remember interviewing. I was on the air the night the Freedom Convoy rolled into Ottawa, And I was on the air the very next morning and interviewing Mr. Mendicino. The protest was literally hours old, Tom, hours old. And already this narrative about Nazis, white supremacists, it was already formed as an opinion within senior members of the Trudeau government, that's who these people were.
Absolutely. Oh, no, it was contrived. This was Bill Blair, the Minister of Emergency Preparedness at the time, said in front of anyone who would ask him that he was convinced this was a foreign-funded insurrection. Wrong, wrong, and wrong. And that was the narrative that was established by Cabinet. And you think about that. You had a federal Cabinet make up a story about a peaceful protest and then break the law over and over and over to crush that protest. That's spectacular. If Stephen Harper did that, people would be burning police cars.
Well, looks like there could be a round 3. Be interesting to see if it does go to the highest court in the land and what the Chief Justice will do, given the comments that he has made about it in the past. We'll be right back with Tom Korski, just getting started with him. So much to talk about today. For Blacklock's reporter, this is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
We're back with Tom Korski. He's the managing editor at Blacklock's reporter. There are new guidelines, according to your reporting, for the public service on retention of communications, such as chats on Teams, Microsoft Teams, Copilot chats, that's an AI assistant, and Outlook deleted items, of course, email. What concerns you about the changes, Tom?
Well, it's pretty subjective in terms of the arbitrary opinion that federal managers may have in destroying records. And we do have a law called Access to Information, and it has been a source of constant conflict with this cabinet going back now in 11 years. They'd promised greater disclosure, and they have fought that every inch of the way. We know, for instance, that the Federal Information Commissioner now has beaten a path to the federal court to an unprecedented degree of times, issuing orders to federal managers to release public documents. This is public business. What goes on in these sort of chats? Well, you just mentioned one during the Freedom Convoy where you had 2 officers of cabinet musing about deploying the military against unarmed peaceful protesters outside Parliament Hill. And so when you give federal managers the opinion, the ability to act on their view that my email, my chat with a buddy could be destroyed because it's not really pertaining to, it's not relevant to public business, you know they're going to take that opportunity. It is a huge problem, the destruction of electronic records held by government. Ask anybody who has ever gone to court against the government and sought records.
Okay. New data out about who is watching the TV news these days. What does that audience look like these days?
It's gray.
It's gray.
They look like me. They're some of them may be in a nursing home. The most reliable TV audience now, says CRTC research, is over 65. And Canadians 65 and over are more likely, I quote from their research, to be satisfied with the quality of information and depth of analysis. In other words, these are people who have been watching television news their whole life. This sad news here for television executives. Canadians under the age of 34 are the least likely to believe that television news is fact-based and unbiased. The long-term trends are not good for TV land, Rob.
So those young kids these days, 34 years old and younger, where are they getting their news these days?
Online, talk radios, the audience has been very solid, but more and more radio in the podcast form and online. And everyone knows that CRTC data has shown a typical Canadian now, under the age of 65. It's nothing to spend 3 or 4 hours a day online, all the time. And there's never been more Canadian content out there.
But I will tell you, My father and my stepmother, who are in their mid to late 70s now, they watch the 6 o'clock news religiously. Not so much the late news anymore, the national news, but 6 o'clock, like it's just part of life. The news is on, gonna watch it. Yeah, gotta watch the news. How else will I know what's going on? This is very interesting. What the Heritage Minister, Mark Miller, said in a briefing note about the CBC, that the CBC's job is to promote social cohesion. Please explain.
Isn't that an interesting phrase? Here's a briefing note by the department. It says that why characterize it? Why don't I just read the relevant and fascinating section? It says there are certain segments of the population that remain disengaged. These are worrying trends. And it then goes on to say, we remembered the people who are under 65, who use a lot of social media. There's divisive content out there, says the department, and Canada faces a series of crises, including threats to our sovereignty, at the same time of social fragmentation and the undermining of social cohesion, whatever that means. But when the feds use the phrase social cohesion, that's going to be a box of fireworks, because it does imply that's anyone who doesn't agree with me, because they like that old 1975 broadcast model. They talk and you're going to listen, and it's slipping away, and they don't like it, Rob.
Okay. If you'll stick around for just a few minutes, some news on housing this week. Public opinion on housing, according to in-house research.
Oh, you bet. Not good.
And how the heck does a Liberal senator, Colin Deacon from Nova Scotia, who's a founding shareholder in a company, get a loan from the government? He's a senator who has a share in a company. How does that company manage to get a loan from the government? How does that clear an ethics screen? I don't get it. Maybe Tom can explain it to us. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with a few more minutes with Tom Korski, the managing editor of Blacklock's reporter, blacklocks.ca. Stuff in the housing market, especially for young people. Housing is so expensive. Rents are so expensive. The housing minister has had his department dig into how Canadians feel about their prospects with housing. What are they hearing?
Well, just despair. It's despondent. It's just dreadful. They asked people, how do you currently feel about housing affordability where you live? And a majority said not at all hopeful. 73% say I'm worried, and 69% I'm frustrated. They asked them, how confident are you the government of Canada is working to make housing more affordable? The number who expressed confidence, 14%. A majority said they expect no benefit from the programs. You see data just today, CMHC, saying a very slight increase in housing starts last year, but they flatlined after Labor Day. Don't look for much growth this year, they said. And those numbers, what are they looking at? 242,000 starts. That's less than half the feds say is required to meet affordability. It's just awful, Rob.
Yeah. That research was done for the housing department by Ipsos Public Affairs, which was paid $105,000 for the work. So that's pretty good work if you can get it, to interview 2,000 people across the country. That'll get you a 3-bedroom house in Ottawa in 1961. So, so there you go. I read this story this week. Let me read a little bit here. Liberal appointee Senator Colin Deacon of Nova Scotia breached conflict rules as founding shareholder of a company that solicited a federal loan. The Senate Ethics Commissioner granted Deacon a waiver. Deacon is founder of Blue Light Analytics, Halifax dental equipment supplier, incorporated in 2009. Okay, a Halifax dental equipment supplier. Why do you need a loan from the government? The senator and his wife hold a 10% share in the firm. I don't get this. How does a senator who has a 10% share in a dental equipment supplier get a loan from the government? Because that doesn't seem to pass the ethics test to me.
No, in fact, it's against the rules. The rules are very explicit. The rules, this is the conflict of interest code for senators, states, very plain English. It says if you're a senator, you cannot have an interest in any company that draws a benefit from any government department or agency. And here you have a senator with a founding shareholder interest in a company that drew a benefit from a government or agency. By the way, Deacon wouldn't tell us how much the loan was. Those are typically six figures. Why don't you just go to a bank or credit union like everybody else, bud? No, he wanted a government loan. And what did the ethics officer at the Senate say? As if he's more of a life coach, not so much of a watchdog, said, well, I don't think you're a good person, Senator, and I don't think this is going to do any harm. By the way, this is the second round for Deacon. We found out in 2019, while a director of the company applied for and received almost $120,000 in federal grants. He denied any conflict because, as he said at the time, I'm not involved in day-to-day operations. I'm just a director.
The ethics officer says it's not clear to me that the loan with the Business Development Bank is a benefit. Like, how do you come to that conclusion, ethics officer? He's a shareholder in the company. Of course it's a benefit. What a puzzling place that upper chamber is. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Rob.
Speak next week. Bye-bye. Yeah. Isn't that a puzzling one? Aren't you glad somebody's minding Ottawa's business for you? That's Tom Korski from Blacklock's Talkback. Next.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today it's the Friday free-for-all. Our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We always have a few ready to go. But we always prefer to know what's on your mind on Fridays. So tell us what's on your mind. What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, there's always news. Certainly lots of news this week. If you want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, you just feel free to raise it right here, whatever it happens to be. Okay, serious, not so serious. We have a phone line for you. All the phone lines are open right now. And the number to call, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. And as always, if you've never called before, just mention that and we will make your call a priority. The number to call again, 1-833-668-2577. What do you think of the deal? The China deal. Prime Minister Carney has a deal with China. It includes tariff relief for many of the products that have been subjected to steep tariffs by China. Canola meal, peas, lobster, crab. So people in the fishery in Atlantic Canada will be happy to hear that. It's a multi-billion-dollar a year business after all. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, a happy man. He has a good story to tell his farmers back home. He was on this trip with the Prime Minister. Those products won't be tariff-free, but the tariffs are coming down dramatically. The big Canadian angle to this as well is that we're lowering tariffs on Chinese-made EVs, and you're going to be able to buy one. They'll be allowed to be sold here in this country. Chinese EV companies will be allowed to bring in 49,000 EVs a year into this country. There will be a tariff, 6.1%, but that is down from the 100% tariff that was put in place by the previous Liberal government, Justin Trudeau. That 49,000 vehicle a year quota will go up every year by 6%. It will eventually hit 70,000 EVs a year over the next 5 years. And part of that quota will be set aside for EVs priced with what the Prime Minister has called a landing price of $35,000 or less. $35,000 or less. By 2030, half of the Chinese-made EVs would have to carry that quote-unquote landing price of $35,000 or less. Doug Ford is not happy about it at all. He issued a statement today calling it a mess, saying cheap made-in-China cars are going to be flooding this market, that it threatens the Canadian auto industry, that it threatens Canadian jobs, and Donald Trump's not going to be happy. And in fact, we have some new audio in from the Ontario Premier about this deal that Carney has struck with China, and he expresses his disappointment, so to speak. Let's listen. I haven't heard this yet. Let's listen to this.
Absolutely not. Didn't have any consultation. Didn't consult with any the automakers. This is going to be terrible for not only just all the people of Ontario, but especially the auto manufacturers, the supply chain. We're letting China into a market that's going to have lower tariffs than our largest market, the U.S., and I don't think that's going to go over too well with President Trump, but it's going to hurt every single auto manufacturer, every single supply chain that has anything to do with the auto sector. This was not thought out properly. It wasn't consulted. It was a knee-jerk reaction as far as I'm concerned, and this is going to be a big, big problem.
It'd be a big, big problem, according to Ontario Premier Doug Ford. I would expect similar comments. I haven't seen a statement yet from Unifor, the big auto workers union, but obviously Lana Payne, the head of that union, is not going to be pleased at all. But Mark Carney today said this is going to be a big win for Canadians because they'll be able to drive the cars of the future at a much lower price. And he said that he hopes one day those Chinese companies, like BYD, for example, will actually build factories here. What do you think of the deal? What do you think of it? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Ontario Premier Doug Ford calls it a mess, said he wasn't consulted about it. Nobody in the industry was consulted about it. Prime Minister Carney's calling it a landmark. It's a landmark deal. Michelle Rempel-Garner is a Conservative member of Parliament from the Calgary area. She's speaking about this right now. Can we listen to this? Okay, we'll cue that up when she talks about it. Okay, so that's one topic that's out there on the Friday free-for-all Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Again, if there's anything on your mind, I'd really love to have your take on this deal with China. What do you think? We've talked about it all week. Chinese EV companies will be allowed to bring in almost 50,000 vehicles a year into this country. Canadians buy about 1.8 million new vehicles every year. That's what Mr. Carney was pressing today. Says only 3% of autos represents 3% of auto sales. There's a little more to that number that I can run down for you as well. I don't know if that tells the whole story about exactly how big a deal this actually is and how many cars are actually coming into the country when you look at the actual sales figures for the most popular models in the country. But the Ontario Premier's not happy. This is going to hurt our industry, threatens jobs. And Mr. Trump's not going to be happy about it either. Have your say on Talkback. Friday Free-For-All. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Consider there's just one more conversation starter, particularly for our listeners in the Halifax surrounding area today. What do you think about your premier going after cannabis operations on reserves in your province? This has been an ongoing story in the Nova Scotia news. In Nova Scotia, the pot is supposed to be sold at the government-owned liquor stores. Nova Scotia Liquor Commission. If you buy it anywhere else, Premier Tim Houston says you're buying it from a drug dealer. You're buying pot from a drug dealer. And he has called on the RCMP to crack down and do raids. Go into these communities, start raiding these places, shutting them down. Been a few raids. Houston's made all kinds of claims. He says some of this pot is laced with fentanyl, but the RCMP says, that's the first we've heard of it, if that's the case. He has said that there are 118 illegal pot shops in Nova Scotia, but nobody seems to know where that number came from. He also said that the pot that is sold in these illegal pot shops on the reserves linked to organized crime, criminal organizations involved in money laundering, human trafficking, prostitution, all that stuff. But when he's pressed, again, he doesn't really back up those claims. They're just claims. He had a lengthy news conference yesterday, and despite reporters in Nova Scotia trying to poke holes in all of his claims, he's adamant that these places have to be shut down. And many of the chiefs in these communities, they're not impressed with the Premier of Nova Scotia. I'd like to know what you think about that. What do you think? What do you know about the situation? What do you think is going on? What do you think about the claims from your Premier? Should those pot shops be shut down? They're illegal. I mean, under the Nova Scotia regulations for selling pot, they are illegal. Should they be shut down? What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Let's get to the phone lines. Dwayne is in Calgary. Hi, Dwayne. What's on your mind today, Dwayne?
How are you
good
today?
morning to you. Very good. Thank you. Could be warmer. Send some of that Calgary weather this way. I'd be very happy.
Well, it was quite nice for a while, that's for sure. Today I'd like to bring up the fact about what the people going to vote for separation here in Alberta.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are smart. And I don't know if they really think through the financial aspect of what would happen with the separation. The Premier says that we have X amount of money that we're owed from the Canada Pension Fund, and I think her numbers are way off. But at any rate, I can't see how the province will pay for all the policing, hospitals, and all the infrastructure that happens all the time, where if they even get the money from the pension plan, they could blow through that in a heartbeat. I don't know if they think that transfer payments will stop coming from the federal government towards hospitals and stuff. So, and I see the people in line to vote on this referendum and stuff, but, and again, like I say, people aren't stupid, but I don't know if they're really thinking through what may come if they get their way.
Yeah. I was reading in the news today. I mean, big crowds, lots of people lined up to sign petitions.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. But yet
to press forward with a referendum, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think they said like 17% of the people, which is a far cry from having the 50% or whatever the majority part would be if this comes to a ballot. But again, I don't understand where they think the money's going to come from to keep the province going.
Well, I when I put this to people, they think too much money is leaving Alberta. It's, going to Atlantic Canada. That's the claim. Going to Atlantic Canada. It's going to Quebec. And they won't have to, that money won't leave Alberta. It will stay in Alberta. And Alberta will be better off because of that. That's what I hear from people.
Well, yeah, and I've heard that part too. And fair enough, they have a actual complaint about the federal government mistreating Alberta for years since Trudeau's father.
Absolutely.
But I think the larger picture may be that to give another chance to the federal government, but the amount of what it will cost to become the 51st state, possibly, with having who's gonna buy your oil other than what if they were to shut off the Trans Mountain pipelines? If BC says, you know what, you're not part of Canada, we're not handling any of your oil anymore. And as far as people may have to get passports and the policing, the hospitalizations are hurting in Alberta, same as many other provinces, I realize. I just don't see where the money's going to come from to to run everything in the province if they're on their own.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's your opinion. I might get a few calls that will dispute your opinion. And, there will be people who can call and say, this is why I think Alberta will be better off if we're not part of Canada anymore. It's going to be a big story to watch this year. It's very likely there could be a referendum on that subject this year in the province of Alberta. No doubt about it. Collecting the signatures now. I'm told they're not going to have any issue at all getting enough signatures to force a referendum on Alberta separation. Friday Free For All Talkback. Let's get things seriously going here. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Jeremy's in Halifax on the Friday Free For All Talkback. Hi, Jeremy. What's on your mind, Jeremy?
How you doing? Oh, not much. I wanted to weigh in on the, I guess if you asked about the cannabis sales on Indigenous reserves here in Nova Scotia, I don't think we should be wasting time on that as far as the Premier's concerned. Like I said, or like you said, I should say, there's doesn't seem to be much factual, sort of information to back up what it is he's alleging. As far as criminal organizations running or having an interest in these, non-sanctioned, non-government sanctioned places of sale for cannabis.
Where's it coming from then? But Jeremy, where is it coming from then? Where's the pot coming from?
Well, that's a good question. I couldn't answer that question, but I don't know how Mr. Houston could answer that question either. If the RCMP have publicly stated that they don't necessarily see a link between the sales of cannabis outside of the NSLC and organized crime. They're saying right now, at least from what you've just said on the program, that they don't see any links there. But I'm not saying that there isn't. But generally how it goes is law enforcement does an investigation and either lays charges based on what they find or doesn't. Right. So if there's been an investigation, I would think the RCMP would be forthcoming about that and say, we've found or not found links to organized crime, as the Premier alleges. But, what is there out there in the public domain to support what the Premier has said? I'm not sure. I can't see anything right now.
Yeah, not so much right now, but I would not be surprised. Where's the pot coming from? Where do you think it's coming from? Biker gangs, right? I mean, there might be biker gangs.
Sure. Look, yes, of course.
Something
traditionally, cannabis has been the cannabis trade has been part of how criminal organizations make their money. But that doesn't mean that everybody who's selling cannabis is necessarily associated with organized crime. So I think it's just I think it's fair to keep that in front of mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think it's a waste of time?
Well, I don't know that it's a waste of time, but I think if they're going to delve into it, I think there should be proper investigations done by qualified.
Proper investigation, fair enough. Okay. Right. Yep. You wanted to talk about Doug Ford?
Yeah, just the whole Carney deal with China. I don't understand necessarily how somebody can right away just come out and say it's all going to be bad. There are probably going to be some negative consequences for the auto sector that flow from it, but I don't think, again, unless you have a crystal ball, you can make the prediction that it's all catastrophic. I don't know how we can say that this early in the deal. And of course, as far as Mr. Trump not liking things, I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. What has Trump liked that Canada has done? Nothing. So you either got to play ball with the teams you're left with, or take your bat and go home. And I don't think anybody. Look, we can't get a deal with the states no matter what Carney does. It doesn't matter what he does or has done so far. Donald Trump is going to operate from the place that Donald Trump operates from, which is, what can I leverage out of any given country at any given time? So, I think, look, we'll see, I guess, how it plays out. One thing that did strike me was the numbers that were put out there. I think 49,000 EVs are going to be introduced, and they said that was, 3% of the auto sector sales? Is that
in a year? Yeah, so, it's 3% of sales, yeah.
Right, but I think that fails to ignore that I think total sales for EVs, just EVs in Canada, is somewhere around 250,000 units, I think I read last year for the 2024-2025 year. So if you look at it from that perspective, 50,000 units almost that's quite significant, right?
That's quite significant. Yeah, it is. And you think of all the money that's been plowed into what I would call the EV infrastructure. Most of it in Ontario, some of it in Quebec, a little bit in BC, but it's, $50 billion. A lot of it is government money.
Yeah.
What is it going to mean if 50,000 made in China EVs are coming here, eventually 70,000 by the end of the decade, just 4 years from now, and they're 35 grand. Most of them are 35 grand or less. Could be a game changer.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Matt in Calgary on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Thanks for waiting, Matt. You're up next. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, very good.
Oh, good.
How are you?
I want to talk about the China thing. I'm good. It's sunny here in Calgary. It's a nice day.
That's good. I'm jealous.
Yeah. I want to. Yeah, it's
your
nice.
turn will come, Matt. Your turn will come. You know that nice weather never lasts, so enjoy it while it lasts. But you want to talk about the deal? Okay, the China deal. Let's talk about it. What do you think of it?
So my general philosophy is I'm all for open trade and competition. So I think Canada is fully capable of competing on the global economy. We have vast energy reserves. Our workforce is okay. We have stable institutions. And, Rob, the world's changing, right? And China, it's a major economic power. We can't ignore it. We can't ignore the fact that the Chinese, they really do make really, really good stuff now, right? They used to make crap, but now they're making good stuff. And if we look at history, countries that have cut themselves off, right, from the world, they always fall behind if you look at history. And I think this whole tariff thing, protectionism, that's no good. And so I think also doing what the unions want to do is kind of short-term thinking. It makes a couple people happy, but it stops competition. So that's my deal. Canada should be open for business with everybody, work with everybody, all of the time. That's my opinion.
Okay. What do you think about what Ontario Premier Doug Ford has said, though? People in Ontario could lose their jobs. Companies in Ontario could go under if they're undercut by. And what is Trump going to think if Canada becomes a landing spot for made in China electric vehicles that he doesn't like?
No, that's cool. I'm from the Windsor area. And a lot of the problem is that I always felt like the unions only thought about the workers, but they didn't think about how to remain in competition with everybody else. And so the unions always thought about short-term protecting their workers, but they didn't put enough emphasis on. See, my opinion is that the unions should be their primary goal should be how can our workers compete with the other workers around the world and to stay innovative. So unions should be in charge of innovation and technology and forward thinking rather than this sort of collective, just don't lose our jobs.
Well, some would say that might be a race to the bottom, though, when it comes to, say, workers' rights. Workers' rights? In China, you're not even allowed to join a union.
Yeah, I know, but and that's another thing. Everybody, it's a very common thing. When nations can't compete with other ones, they shut themselves off with the rest of the world, and then they talk crap about other countries. They say, "Oh, that country over there is no good. Their way of living is no good." I would highly suggest union workers, those people that think that way, take a trip to China, go see the modern cities. It's a nice place. China's a good place to live.
Okay. I'll have to take your word for it. I'm not planning a trip there anytime soon. Thank you, Matt, though, for your call. Hussein also in Calgary today. Hussein. Hi, Hussein.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine, loud and clear.
Perfect.
What's on your mind?
Awesome. I just wanted to say I'm a big fan, Rob, to be honest with you. I've been listening to you
I appreciate that. Very kind of you to say. Thank you so much.
I wanted to talk about that China deal that the Prime Minister did.
The China deal, sure. What are your thoughts on it?
Honestly, I'm all for it because I know the reason why I'm saying that is because all the deals that Trump has been doing for America is for Americans only, not for Canadians, if you know what I mean. And secondly, I support the Prime Minister's judgment to go into China and to make a deal with them, and to make our trades with China a little bit more better than what it was. And it will help us more in the long run. And I know it will affect our country in a negative way in some areas, but in the long run, I see the advantage of it.
Okay.
That's basically my
Well, I mean, it's good news. It's good news. You know, Scott Moe is very pleased with the deal. And he has said in the past, the canola industry is, 200,000 jobs. And he has said that when you look at the canola industry, it's bigger than the aluminum industry, the steel industry, and the auto industry combined.
Exactly.
So, and this is the second largest market for that one particular product. And then you take in peas and nothing on pork today, but the seafood as well. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, crab, lobster, for Atlantic Canada. So, that's important. But there's a lot of concerns about it, however.
Yeah, I understand some of the concerns about the job in Ontario, but to be honest with you, in the long run, it's a better choice because I know there will still be more trades coming up in the upper future if we continue going this way, because Prime Minister is fighting for Canadians. He's fighting for us. He's not fighting for Americans. And I believe we should stay away from Americans because look at the president, the way how he's leading his country right now so far. All the protests is going around in his own country. And we don't want that negativity to come across our border.
Thank you, Hussein, for your call and your kind words on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Thinks it's a good deal for Canada. The Canada-China deal signed today by Prime Minister Carney and Xi Jinping. The big development is tariff relief for Western Canada and the fishery in Atlantic Canada. And Chinese EVs could soon be landing at a Canadian auto dealer soon. A good portion of them would be priced at $35,000, an EV for $35,000. Like to see that car. 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Eric in Halifax today. Hi, Eric. You're on Talkback.
Rob, how are you doing this afternoon?
Very good. Thank you. Hope you're well.
Clear something up for me. Is the Honda made in Japan?
Honda is a Japanese company, but they make cars in Canada. I believe the Civic might be made in Canada. Yeah. They have in Alliston, Ontario.
Okay, then the immigrants will love it because a good percentage of Nova Scotians, and I'm on the road quite a bit. Majority of them are immigrants driving a Honda. Now I don't know what a Honda sells for, but they're driving them. As far as the
I don't know what you're talking
drug thing, I don't get involved with that. I mean, it doesn't matter to me what that guy down in Pictou does because sometimes I don't think he's playing with a full deck. But Canada's sinking, buddy. Canada is sinking. That's what I come down to. But I didn't call about that because you know I love sports. Okay?
Yes.
So I didn't.
Right.
As far as the other stuff goes around, there's nothing I could do about it. Just let the
Okay,
chips
so let's
fall
talk
where they
about
may.
sports then. The way this conversation's going, I'd rather talk about sports. So
All right. College
let me ask you
football,
this.
College football,
yeah.
Indiana will have a cakewalk with Miami. Miami shouldn't even bother showing up. NFL, Denver and Seattle in the Super Bowl. New England scares me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as
so
the
you would.
NHL
So
goes,
look, I'm Eric. If I just could,
go
okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
So tomorrow afternoon, the game is the Broncos and the Bills. The Broncos are my team. I've been cheering for them since I was a little kid, and John Elway was the quarterback. They haven't had a season like this in 10 years. When the last time they won the Super Bowl, when Peyton Manning was their quarterback. They had a 14-win season. The game is in Denver. There, and the Bills are favored to win. What do you think about that?
Oh, that's a misprint. That means Denver had a great season. It's going to go down to a field goal. I mean, if Buffalo pulls it out, I'll be shocked. But New England is the team that scares me. Of all the teams that are remaining, New England scares me. I'm not worried about Buffalo because Buffalo's a bunch of chokers. So that's it for my projections for the NFL.
Team that has impressed me the most outside of Denver this year is Chicago. The Bears. They just seem like a team of destiny to me.
They only beat them by 4 points.
Yeah, but they did beat them though.
Yeah, they did.
And came from behind to do it again. So
they were good all year. Go ahead.
All right. I think I could see the Bears making the Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be the winner of this Broncos-Bills game tomorrow that will come out of the AFC. I don't think the Patriots or the Texans are Super Bowl bound. That's my own opinion.
The Patriots are the Cinderella team as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. All right. Gotta go, Eric. Thank you for your call. All the best. Let's take one more here. Danveer in Calgary. Danveer up next. Hi, Danveer.
Hello, Rob.
Hey, Danveer. What's on your mind today?
Hey, about the number of cars. You said it's only 49,000 vehicles, EVs that we can have?
A year, and eventually 5 years from now, it'll be 70,000 a year.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the numbers are correct, but Teslas that we get is about 1.6 million. So those are also not made in Canada, right?
There are about 1.8 million new vehicles sold in Canada every year.
Yeah, and they are also not in Canada. So, my thinking is like how I think about it. Apple and Teslas, they are allowed to outsource from China and sell to Canada, but me and you, we cannot get it from China. Like if what's happening is that this is directly coming to the customer, not through the Apples or Teslas. So they can benefit from the low cost without giving any concern about the employment in Canada or US even. But the consumer cannot, right? So I don't understand any basis of the policy. So either if they want to stop, like let's say they want to stop from China, like they did in the last year or something, so why don't they stop or put the same tariffs on the products that these other companies, the big companies, are getting from China? Because if, for example, if it's like any number of cars, if it takes like 10,000 employees to make it, so they'll have assembly plants here, probably 2,000 of them employed here, and all this stuff is still coming from China or other low-cost countries. So I don't know. It's all messed up. I think there needs to be a more comprehensive analysis of the policies that we have.
Okay. Mr. Ford today said it was rushed. It was knee-jerk. Industry wasn't consulted on it. He wasn't consulted about it. He's quite upset about it. We can play the clip a little later just to remind people of Premier Ford. At odds with Prime Minister Mark Carney. They usually get along so well. But Premier Ford not a happy man today. There are winners and losers because Premier Moe in Saskatchewan is very happy. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Fall River, Nova Scotia. Fred is there on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Fred.
Hello, Rob. Can you hear me okay? I'm on the road.
Yeah, I hear you just fine, Fred, loud and clear. What's on your mind?
Oh, okay, a couple of things. Tim Houston's comments regarding the illegal marijuana operations. I guess my first question is, are these native-run shops illegal?
According to the Premier, they're illegal, and according to the regulations for selling pot in Nova Scotia, you can only sell it through the liquor store.
Okay, if that's the case, then they need to be shut down. One of the problems we have in Canada, Rob, is we have these double standards. They exist with the Native Indians and the other Canadians, and they exist in other sectors of our society as well. The Native community, if they want to sell marijuana, they need to lobby through the legislative branches like everyone else in order to get legislation passed to allow them to be legal. Otherwise, they need to be shut down. Now, secondly, with respect to Mark Carney's recent EV deal with China, I just like to remind your listeners that China has never kept its word. China not only is involved in a myriad of human rights violations. I mentioned the Uyghurs, the Falun Gong, the organ
Uyghurs.
harvesting.
Falun Gong.
Uyghurs, excuse me. Falun Gong, this organ harvesting, civil rights violations, not to mention the fact that they interfere with our elections here in Canada with at least 9 ridings that were interfered with by the Chinese. Excuse me here, I'm just driving in some pretty heavy traffic with the Chinese in our Canadian elections, and they're intimidating Chinese Canadians that are here. The other thing that's worth noting, and something the Canadian unions have complained about for years, especially the steel industry, is the dumping of their goods and the artificially devaluation of their yen currency. All of this in combination makes them a bad trading partner. And although Mo is happy with the canola deal, we have to search for other reliable partners to trade with. We are propping up a terrorist, human rights violating country, and Canada surely needs to look somewhere else. We cannot trust the agreement we made. We can't trust China to keep their part of it. How do I know that? Through a series of breaking of their arrangements in the past and their interference with our own state-run organizations. So that's my 2 cents on that.
And you've had it. Thank you. Thank you. We got to go. Mr. Carney was asked about that, whether we were casting aside all the concerns that you just raised in order to pursue our own economic interests. And he said we have to operate in the world the way it is, not how we wish it to be. Hour number 2 of Talkback, Friday Free for All, just ahead, right after the latest breaking news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It is the Friday Free for All. A top topic today, however, is the Prime Minister's deal with China. Includes tariff relief for many of the products like canola that have been subjected to tariffs by China. Canola meal, peas, lobster, crab. Scott Moe expressing his pleasure with the deal. He's a happy man. Doug Ford, however, does not like the deal because it includes lowering tariffs on Chinese-made EVs. And those EV companies like BYD, for example, will be allowed to bring in 49,000 EVs a year into the country with a 6.1% tariff. But remember, there was a 100% tariff that was put in place by the Trudeau government. It'll eventually go up to 70,000 EVs a year. Over the next 5 years, it'll go up about 6% a year. And by the year 2030, half of those EVs would have to carry a landing price, according to the Prime Minister, $35,000 or less. I mentioned Doug Ford is not happy about this deal. And we have some audio from the Ontario Premier. Let's play that again.
Absolutely not. Didn't have any consultation. Didn't consult with any of the automakers. This is going to be terrible for not only just all the people of Ontario, but especially the auto manufacturers, the supply chain. We're letting China into a market that's going to have lower tariffs than our largest market, the U.S., and I don't think that's going to go over too well with President Trump, but it's going to hurt every single auto manufacturer, every single supply chain that has anything to do with the auto sector. This was not thought out properly. It wasn't consulted. It was a knee-jerk reaction as far as I'm concerned, and this is going to be a big, big problem.
Going to be a big, big problem, according to the Ontario Premier Doug Ford. We have brief remarks from U.S. President Donald Trump, who was asked about Canada and China striking a trade deal. Let's listen to that. All right, we'll get that fixed and we'll play that for you shortly as soon as we have it. Let's, who's up next here on Talkback today? Let's go to Nelson in Nova Scotia. Nelson, you're up next, Nelson. Thanks for waiting.
Thank you. Hello, Rob.
Hello,
Nelson.
Nelson.
Let me answer a little bit of the questions of where the grow-ops here, the native grow-ops, are getting their weed. Actually, they grow a lot of it themselves.
Okay.
And one of the things that some people, I guess they don't understand, most people do, is that they are a nation themselves, and they sort of associate with each other. So right across the country, they're growing the weed, and it's being distributed across the country, in Ontario and out west and whatever, and they just work among themselves. They're getting other weed from some of the local growers here who lost their market after it became legal, and they're getting some from the actual legal growers who grow a little bit extra and supply them with some. So that's a little bit of an idea of where they're getting a lot of it.
Okay, so what do you think about what the Premier is saying?
Well, unfortunately, to break it right
he's
down,
calling them illegal drug dealers. If you're running one of these pot shops, you're an illegal drug dealer.
Yeah, unfortunately, they are federal. And they don't really come under the provincial laws here. They're on federal lands. And really, he says this stuff mainly because he doesn't want to challenge it because of the Marshall ruling here. And if they go all through court and then there's another ruling against them in the Supreme Court, well, then they're done. So he's doing a lot of talking, but he's not actually going to do anything to challenge them. And besides that, it's low-hanging fruit. We have a lot of serious problems here in this province. There's we're the highest in the country for young women going missing and ending up in the sex trade. And we're the highest in the country for children who are living below the poverty line. And we have the homeless. There's a lot of serious problems. So this is low-hanging fruit for him, so he doesn't have to get into the real issues. It's very unfortunate. Okay. But Mr. Houston will stay in power, because we have a vacuum here of leadership. And the Liberals are like the federal conservatives and whatever. They really don't have a leader now. So he'll stay in power now until another strong leader comes in one of the other parties, and then he'll be gone because he hasn't really lived up to the billing, unfortunately.
Okay. He's very popular. Let's play a little bit. He had a news conference yesterday. The Nova Scotia media had a lot of questions for him on this particular topic. Let's play a little bit of it here.
On illegal dispensaries, how did you determine how many there are in the province?
That's an interesting question because it's when you're an illegal drug dealer operating illegally in a province, you don't register with the province, right? I don't know if that might surprise some people, but illegal drug dealers don't tell the province where they're setting up shop and when they're operating. So we wanted to understand the magnitude of the problem, and this is a problem. We have illegal drug dealers operating in our province. You can drive down the 102. I don't know if anyone's had an opportunity to drive down the 102 towards Truro. Just look around. You'd see a number of them yourself. But we're less concerned with the number and more concerned with the fact it's operating. So
Put a number on it when you issue the directive.
It doesn't matter to me if it's 118 or 18. It's illegal to operate those dispensaries in this province. And that's a fact that seems to have been lost a lot by many people reporting on it. Sometimes at the end of the story, I'll see just a little tiny footnote that judges have decided that this is illegal in the province. If there was one brothel, would that be too many? It's illegal. It's illegal to operate those in the province. We did a rough conservative account. I believe the number is much higher, to be honest. But there was a conservative count done just from a number of mechanisms to understand the scope of the problem. Guess what? It's a big, big problem. There's at least
a big problem, according to the Premier of Nova Scotia, who wants the RCMP to start going in there and start raiding these illegal pot shops on reserves in Nova Scotia. It hasn't really hit the national news just yet, but it's kind of just simmering there in the background. Been all over the Nova Scotia media, however. This is Talkback Friday Free for All. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And not just any Talkback, Friday Free for All Talkback. So we're wide open today on topics. Carney's deal with China, that's a big one today. The situation with cannabis shops in Nova Scotia, another hot topic. But whatever happens to be on your mind, give us a call, 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Art is in Calgary today. Hi, Art. Hi, Art. Are you with me? I don't think he's there. I kind of hear him, but I don't hear him. Joe is in Calgary as well. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call again.
My pleasure. Yep. Go ahead. What's on your mind today?
I'd like to just touch on touch quickly on 3 points: pot, Alberta separation, and the China deal. First of all, the pot. You know what? They're a sovereign nation. They should be allowed to do what they want. And too bad, so sad for the Canadian government. They created it. So, hey. And not only that, but I know a lot of people here in Alberta that actually grow their own pot legally. You know, they stick to the 4 plants and everything. And their stuff is phenomenal because they've been doing it for years. They know how to do it. And it's way better than the stores. And all they'd have to do to solve that problem is have like a vendor's license. Because these guys aren't selling it like excessive amounts. They're selling their little bit of extra that they have, right? So they can be taxed. All they'd have to do is have a vendor's license.
All right.
Anyway, so moving on, the Alberta separation thing, I still would love to be part of the U.S. But that aside, I think the U.S. is headed for a major collapse. So I think dealing with China and other countries, whether their moral basis is aligned with ours or not, is a smarter thing to do. Because if you really look at what the U.S. has done throughout the world, they've caused a lot of immorality and a lot of stuff in this world that it doesn't stick to them as well because they don't do it in their own country. They just do it outside their country, whereas China does it in their own country.
Okay. What do you think? Well, what do you think about these concerns? I mean, they are serious concerns that Doug Ford is raising here. That our auto sector, I mean, it's under a lot of pressure already because of what's happening with tariffs from the United States, and now could be facing kind of a double whammy, being undercut by what he calls cheap made in China electric vehicles.
Oh, you know what? I absolutely agree with him, but then at the same time, I disagree for the simple reason that I think Trump is hell-bent on destroying our auto industry anyway. So we better come up with plan B, you know. And as far as the Chinese EVs are going, you know what? That's, as far as I'm concerned, an insignificant thing in the sense that not all of us want EVs. Like, I'm not big on EVs. However, if I had a cheap Chinese EV that I've heard they can charge in a couple, like in 10, 15 minutes, some of their newer technology, I'd be like, I would own something like that, but I wouldn't not have a gas-powered vehicle. I've got a fifth wheel, so I need my truck to tow my trailer, right?
Right.
But,
sure.
But an EV would be great for commuting in town.
Yeah. Was there something else that you wanted to talk about? Or I think you touched on all three of them. Okay. All right. Very good, Joe. Thanks for calling, having your say, expressing an opinion, having a thought. It's good to hear. Sean in Kitchener today. Hello, Sean.
Hi, Rob. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, Sean. What's on your mind?
Just a lighter note. I don't know if you saw that going to talk a little bit of hockey here. The Florida Panthers did their trip to the White House recently.
I saw it, but I didn't watch it. What happened? Anything spectacular?
Well, it was nothing really spectacular. Just Matthew Tkachuk, a proud American, saying how much of an honor it was. But I've been noticing a lot of comments, people tearing into people like Sam Reinhart and Brad Marchand, who are going to represent Canada at the Olympics, and just saying, you know, they shouldn't be there, and, you know, saying that.
I see.
Kind of calling their Canadian loyalty into question, you know.
Right.
And I got a bit of a problem with that. You know, they're guys, they're doing a job. And anytime they've been asked to represent Canada, they've done a great job, and they're proud Canadian guys. I just don't think it's very fair. They're getting the heat they're getting from a lot of people.
Yeah, I would agree. If you, whether or not you agree with the policies of Donald Trump, if you're invited by the office of the President of the United States to go to the White House, where you're going to be, congratulated for winning the Stanley Cup, that's an honor.
Yeah, and a big thing
in my view.
The comments Trump made about how it's, they've managed, the United States has kept the cup away from Canada for so many years. But there's way more Canadians on most of the American teams anyway. And I know when it comes time to put on that maple leaf, those guys are going to play with a lot of pride.
Yeah, I suspect if it comes down to overtime and it's the gold medal game, and Reinhart passes to Marchand for the golden goal in Milan, all will be forgiven, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. And that's where, we got to respect these guys for what they do, and they've never let us down. Look at the Four Nations Cup, right? So just thought I'd lighten it up a little bit with a little bit of hockey today.
Yeah, lighten up. I'm with you on that. Lighten up a little bit. Lighten up. Thank you. That's a good topic. Mark in Calgary, you'll be up next when we come back. And there are 3-4 lines available there for Talkback today. Friday free-for-all. 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's Friday free-for-all Talkback here on News Radio. Mark up next in Calgary. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Rob. I hope your snowblower is working effectively.
Oh, yeah. It works just fine. I actually have a little ATV with a plow on the front of it. That's what I use. Works like a charm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand that Doug Ford's a bit upset right now, but he himself, said, well, we can't align ourselves with Trump anymore. It's right now we're in a global situation where Trump is saying okay, no more EVs. How is the world, the global, going? Everyone is focusing on climate change, trying to save the planet. How do we do that? By getting non-polluting electric vehicles on the road.
Well, there's some question. We talked about that earlier this week. Is the commitment still there in the fight against climate change? You look at what's going on with the Trump administration. They had the big climate conference this year, and they couldn't come to any kind of agreement, comprehensive global agreement on fighting climate change like they did during the Paris Accord. Even look what's going on in this country. A lot of people in the environmental movement they're a little bit worried about Mark Carney, who had, such sterling environmental climate change warrior chops before he took over. And now he's done away with the carbon tax. He's done away with the oil and gas emissions cap, the clean electricity regulations. There's looking more and more like there's going to be a pipeline from Alberta to BC, maybe make changes to the West Coast anchor ban. I don't know. Is this fight against climate change really on the front burner anymore?
Well, apparently not. And I'm here in Alberta, so I'm not fighting it, obviously. It's,
okay.
I'm one of the few liberals here, right? So,
right.
But no, I'm on board 100%. I've been to China. I've seen their cars. I've been to Europe and actually seen the BYDs. They're a fantastic product. They're right up there with Tesla, if not better now. Coming online is these ion batteries, which don't mind the cold. It's a plus. We can't align ourselves with the states anymore.
Yeah, but what do you tell an auto worker in Oshawa? What do you tell an auto worker in Windsor? What do you tell an auto worker in Cambridge?
Okay, that's a good point. Part of the deal is down the line, we're maybe talking about a few years now, but hey, China's going to help us make electric vehicles here, provided by labor by Canada. So Doug should be happy now.
You think there'd be more opportunities? Right? Mr. Carney did say, one of the end goals of this is to have some of these Chinese companies actually open factories here and partner with the supply chain here. There's a lot more to say on this. Not going anywhere as a news story, that's for sure.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. We are in the home stretch of the Friday Free for All Talkback. Love to hear from you today. Open line, open topic. Steve is in Guelph, Ontario. Great town.
Yeah.
Hello, Steve.
Yeah, right on. How you doing? Listen.
Very good. Yeah.
So I'm thinking I do a lot of driving and I see all kinds of these low infractions, people running reds or, speeding or whatever. And I'm like, I stumbled across a copper one time and I asked him, I said, where are you guys when all this is going on and what's happening? And he's like, oh, we're around, but, sometimes we get called on bigger and better things and all this. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. And then I'm thinking, this has probably been across the table down at the mayor's office. Can they have, like a traffic division, the police where you got more like a traffic cop instead of like a criminal cop, you could say. And they have a bunch of traffic cops kicking around to check in with all this sort of lame behavior and people driving the way they do. Now, they might think, how are we going to fund all this and all this stuff? I'm telling you, they can give out enough tickets to fund it tenfold.
Oh, really?
I just see it all day, every day. People are running reds, skirting around, screwing around. It's like, this is crazy. Anyway, and then I guess the last comment is, it's too bad. I guess, I don't know, I'm sort of like down with Trump. It's all good. Some people like him, some people don't like him. But I would say, man, everyone tries to blame that guy for everything. I'm telling you. I don't know. I think he's an interesting guy and can handle a lot of stuff around the world, unlike many of us. But anyway, I've been doing all the talking, really? Rob. What do you think?
Well, I'm looking at some of the headlines today, and these are headlines that I just never thought I'd read in my lifetime. European troops arrive to defend against USA. European troops arriving in Greenland to defend against USA. NATO fighter jets deployed. This is because they're worried that there's going to be some kind of American invasion of Greenland. I never thought I would, read something like that, an American invasion of a NATO ally.
He won't strike Greenland. There's only 30,000.
You don't think so? He's talking pretty tough about it. One way or another, the easy way or the hard way.
I think the representatives in Greenland were talking right because they said, look, we'll handle Trump and you, the media, stay out of it. Like, not Rob Snow, of course, but, the big ones, CBCs and whatnot. But, no, I don't think he would. You
don't think so?
No. I mean, Denmark and all that's peaceful nation. They can work. There
was a poll this week that a third of Canadians believe he's going to invade this country.
This one?
Canada.
Greenland,
no,
sorry?
Canada. A third of Canadians think he's going to invade Canada.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Oh, people are watching too many movies. That's crazy. He wouldn't.
Crazy?
I think so. I mean, he wouldn't strike at Canada. We're his best friends. We're right here beside him. And the thing is, with Canada doing trade and stuff, Canada should wake up. They do more trade with the Americans than whoever, maybe, I think. But Americans have the world's greatest trading economy and economy going on. And it's like, I don't know, why they mess around and disregard the U.S.
And I'll leave you with one other thing, and I'll just throw this out there. It may provoke some other calls. One of Canada's leading political writers in the last week or so, Paul Wells, who used to write for Maclean's Magazine, the National Post, the list goes on, the Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, the best political writer of his generation, in my opinion, suggested that we have to envision this idea of what he said were little green men, Trump's little green men coming into Canada and, getting up to no good in this country. I don't know if you remember, Putin had little green men in Crimea before the full-scale invasion there. They used to talk about the little green men. And the suggestion was further made that some people might even welcome the little green men to Canada and view them as kind of like liberators of Canada from the United States. Yeah, this is some of the stuff that is out there in the news media. It's pretty wild and crazy. Look, thank you for your call. You think it's all kind of crazy, but it's a crazy world. Thank you for your call. To Surrey, British Columbia, Frank is up next. Hi, Frank.
Rob.
Hi, Frank.
Hello, Rob.
I got you, Frank.
Good. Just to make sure. Enjoying your show as always, and
thank you.
Just a couple of issues I'd like to comment on that you've talked about this morning. The one that really has captured my attention today was your discussion with Tom Korski about this court ruling on the Emergencies Act, and I have to say I am very pleased with that ruling. I think that
now for people who may not be aware of that, there was a challenge at the federal court on the constitutionality of the Trudeau government using the Emergencies Act to end the Freedom Convoy protest. At the appeal at the federal court, that was the original ruling that said Trudeau was out of line and it was unconstitutional. It was a violation of those protesters' charter rights to invoke the Emergencies Act. The federal government appealed. The ruling came down today from the Federal Court of Appeal, which upheld the lower court's decision. So it's 2-0. The government has lost twice now on the constitutionality of that decision to use that act to break up that protest.
Yeah.
You're pleased by that?
I think it's the right decision. I think the Emergencies Act was a tremendous overreach of government, and I think it's important to remember that both Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland trumpeted the importance of it. What particularly bothered me was the seizing of bank accounts. I think that's just so far out of what any Canadian should expect from when you have people protesting something. So I'm very happy with that ruling.
Okay. Anything else?
Quickly comment on is Doug Ford's remarks about the deal with China. When you played that clip, that sounds exactly what Mark Carney could have said about Doug Ford when he chose to run those ads in the U.S.
You know what? You're right.
Reagan.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, I wasn't consulted. Nobody consulted us.
Yeah,
Came out of the blue. Knee-jerk reaction. It's a mess. Yeah, all of those things would apply, wouldn't they? You're right on the money there, Frank. Thank you for your call today on the Friday Free for All Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Airdrie we go on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Thomas is there. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Thomas.
There's a population of 90,000 people in Airdrie, and we're 15 minutes north of Calgary. Last week, a woman named Susie from Airdrie phoned in when the topic was healthcare and said that a friend went to the urgent care center and waited 6 hours to see a doctor, and then she left. And she absolutely trashed the urgent care center, trashed Airdrie. We're only 25 minutes to two great hospitals in Calgary. I'm 80 years old and have lived in Airdrie for over 50 years. I went 3 times to the urgent care center in the last 2 years. I waited 1 hour once, 2 hours, and 3 hours and got fantastic care. They've got limitations. It's not a hospital. They've got their own lab for inpatients. They take x-rays, but there's a lot of things they can't do. Some people end up going to Calgary. Our EMS services are fantastic. Susie said that she had several friends who couldn't get a family doctor. Alberta hired 700 new doctors in a 12-month period ending last July. Danielle Smith toured our facility a year and a half ago, and as a result, they just finished renovations, increasing the number of spaces with beds from 12 to 18, and they've started more renovations. They couldn't do them both at the same time without interrupting service. I went and interviewed the manager of the urgent care center a couple of days ago to get my facts straight. They used to be closed from 10 at night till 8 in the morning. In 2017, they went 24/7. They've got 20 doctors on staff. Most are part-time. From 8 in the morning till 11, they've got 3 doctors and 2 nurse practitioners on duty. They also run a mental health clinic and home care services out of the facility. The manager gave me a list of doctors in Airdrie. There are 27 clinics or offices with a total of 67 doctors, of which 36 are male. 26 of these doctors are accepting new patients, and 14 clinics are welcoming walk-ins. One other thing I should mention, each time I went there, there was 10 to 15 people ahead of me. Twice, I was the only Caucasian there. The other time, there was one other non-immigrant. How can any community service survive an influx of 10 to 14% of population in a 4-year period, be it healthcare or education? Danielle Smith has done a fantastic job under the circumstances compared to other provinces, and it makes me mad when people trash her efforts. We're all living under extenuating circumstances and have to be patient.
I don't recall the entire conversation because it was more than a week ago now, but you're very familiar with it. If I recall, that caller wanted to know what it would take to get for Airdrie to get a hospital. That Airdrie's grown so much now it deserves its own hospital.
Well,
you agree with that?
No, we've got 2 of the best hospitals in Canada, like 25 minutes away. And they can't be putting them every 10 miles across the province.
All right, Thomas. Thank you. You've done a lot of digging and a lot of homework. Sounds like Good work on your part. Let's go back to Guelph, Ontario. Sarah is in Guelph today. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, Sarah. How are you today?
Very good. So I just
That's
had an idea, considering we need housing in all of Canada. So all the bays have closed down, and I feel that that's quite a big space where we could probably put an apartment building right on top of the bay, like clear out the bay, put underground parking, take up the bay parking lot area too in all the malls, and put a nice big complex, and that will bring people shopping inside the malls. So it'll give the mall some traffic because, as you know, all of the malls are kind of dying out. So it'll give some traction. The food courts can make some money. It'll bring shopping a little bit back to life, and it'll take up empty spaces in the mall that we have sitting empty right now and help with housing.
Yeah, it's not the craziest idea I've ever heard. I will tell you, it seems to me with some of the older malls, I can only speak with what's been going on in Ottawa, is when they get kind of to the end of their lifespan and the traffic is not what it used to be, they just bulldoze the mall. And then the condo towers go up.
Well, that's true, but we still need some malls. So, like, the Bay generally is not in older malls. The Bay was generally in newer malls. There used to be a Bay, a Sears, and some of them had a Walmart on them, right? Now, each Sears is gone, so they don't have the anchor stores anymore to bring the people into the malls. So instead of an anchor store, we could spin the idea into apartment buildings, and with apartment buildings, you'd probably have
the residential development becomes the anchor. That's
exactly,
the anchor.
And the residential could be like older people, younger people. You know, older people, the income can be, you know, a nice income from them. They could go downstairs, do their shopping. They don't have to go outside. They don't have to worry about slipping in the wintertime. It kind of checks off a lot of boxes.
Maybe you should be in the real estate development business, Sarah. That doesn't sound like the craziest idea ever. Not bad. Thank you. That's an interesting one for a Friday. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Sharif in Kitchener, up next on the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. Hi, Sharif. Hi, Sharif. Are you there? No, Sharif. Okay. How about Jim, Water Valley, Alberta? Hello, Jim.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Jim. Thank you. How are you?
Talking about this medical.
Have we lost him too? My kingdom for a cell phone. Did he drop out too? Just bad reception? That's it? Okay. Well, that's frustrating, isn't it? Again, one of the top topics for today has been the Carney agreement with China on canola meal, peas, lobster, crabs. China's going to lower the tariffs on those. Not going to be tariff-free, but it's going to lower those. And EVs will come into Canada, 49,000 a year, eventually 70,000 a year. When it hits 70,000, half of them will have to have what Mr. Carney today called a landing price of $35,000. $35,000 Canadian. Premier Ford, not pleased with that, released a statement saying he wants Carney to change his mind and reverse his decision on letting those Chinese-made EVs into this country. He said, China now has a foothold in the Canadian market. Will use it to their full advantage at the expense of Canadian workers. The federal government is inviting a flood of cheap, made-in-China electric vehicles without any real guarantee of equal or immediate investments in Canada's economy, auto sector, supply chain. Worse, by lowering tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, this lopsided deal risks closing the door on Canadian automakers to the American market. our largest export destination, which would hurt our economy and lead to job losses. Instead of importing made in China vehicles, the federal government needs to be focused on working with Ontario to bring investment and jobs to factory floors in Brampton, Oshawa, Ingersoll, and across the province where assembly lines are at risk or have already left the country. Whether farmers or auto workers, Canadians expect and deserve a federal government that gives them every shot at success. I'm urging Prime Minister Carney to work with Ontario to strengthen Canada's auto industry, not weaken it. And then he called on the Prime Minister to, quote, fix this mess, end quote. And they used to get along so well. So on the one side, you have the Prime Minister who says it's a landmark deal. It is a landmark deal between Canada and China. And you have the Premier of Ontario who's won 3 straight elections, 3 straight majority governments. And he calls it a mess. Fix the mess. Fix the mess. That's it for us for this week for Talkback. Back on Monday, brand new topics, more of your calls, and always the latest breaking news. This is News Radio.